Get to our panel. Here in the studio, Simon Marks is the president and chief correspondent of Feature Story News. Next to him, Eric Bolling is a political commentator and host of America This Week with Eric Bolling on all of Sinclair broadcast stations. Joining us from Chicago, Martin Redish is a professor of law and public policy at Northwestern University. And also with us, Peter Kuznick, professor of history at American University and co-author of The Untold History of the United States. A new edition is available right now. Well, welcome to all of you to the show. And let us start in Chicago with Martin Redish. Martin, the Mueller report is out, albeit redacted. There was a lot of talk before that report came out of Donald Trump being accused of collusion or conspiracy to collude with a foreign government. Now it's shifted to obstruction of justice. That's what the Democrats are talking about. That's what his opponents are talking about. And it has led to some Democrats, as we just heard, calling for the president to be impeached. The question is, are there grounds for impeachment? And I know this is as much a political question as it is legal, but you're the legal scholar. Are there legal grounds for impeachment?
Oh, absolutely. The obstruction of justice that was described in Volume 2 of the Mueller report is at the very least, a prima facie case for a finding of criminal obstruction, certainly worthy of investigation for impeachment. And when I think back to the other three examples of impeachment in American history, Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and the near impeachment of Richard Nixon, it seems to me that the case has been made that Donald Trump's behavior is at least on the level of those three and arguably significantly more illegal.
Eric, there you heard it. There are grounds for impeachment.
I find it very difficult. I disagree vehemently with your law professor. Look, the impeachment would be on the heels of an obstruction of justice charge, which would have been found based on a no crime of collusion or corruption by the president. So you're going to go after well, it doesn't matter. But the other impeachments that you speak of was Nixon breaking into Watergate, completely illegal, and Bill Clinton, having improper relations with an intern in the White House, which may not be illegal, but it certainly is wildly unethical. So at the heart of those cases, there was a crime or close to being a crime. What's the crime? There's no crime that came out of the Mueller report. They found no evidence of collusion. Nothing rose to the level of collusion. And by the way, nothing rose to the level of obstruction of justice. Or I bet you $1 million they would have indicted President Trump.
All right, Eric, let me go quickly back to Martin. Martin, very quickly, the fact that there was no underlying crime, does that undercut the accusation that there could be obstruction of justice? Martin?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, as a legal matter, that makes no difference at all. Nor does the fact that he didn't accomplish his obstruction goals. The statute is quite clear that attempted obstruction is the equivalent of obstruction. So ultimately, as you indicated, this is a political matter, not a legal one. But if we were looking at this through the lens of the law, it's pretty clear that there was obstruction done with a corrupt intent, or at least there's enough that a reasonable finder of fact.
Politically, what a mistake it would be for the Democrats in the House to go after an impeachment based on an attempt to obstruct justice for a non-crime event. It'd be insane.
All right, Simon, let me come to you. As we heard in that report from Nathan King, the Democrats appear to be divided on whether they want to impeach Donald Trump or not. And in fact, in an interview that Nancy Pelosi did with Washington Post, she seemed to infer in that interview that Trump didn't do anything serious. In her words, she said, unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that
she's
road.
Trying to take the high moral ground, right? Yeah. She says she was asked to impeach President George W. Bush over the invasion of Iraq, and she didn't think it was the right thing to do. So she argues now she doesn't believe, unless there is fresh, compelling evidence presented, that it would be the right thing immediately to move forward with impeachment impeachment proceedings against President Trump. You could have heard a pin drop after Elizabeth Warren gave voice to the view that impeachment proceedings should begin. No other Democrat seeking the presidential nomination has backed that. But it's not just the Democrats that are divided on this, Anant. Republicans are divided on this as well. Look at the messaging that has been put out by a group called Republicans for the Rule of Law. You don't have to wander that far away from the White House. You can go right into the household of Kellyanne Conway, President Trump's senior advisor. Her husband, constitutional lawyer George Conway, a Republican, says there is a cancer on the presidency, and he argues that there are grounds for impeachment. So this is not, with respect, a simple Democrats think he should be impeached, Republicans
don't. Can we highlight something, how ridiculous this commentary is? Kellyanne Conway is one of the biggest supporters on the planet for President Trump. She works with him directly. George Conway was turned down for a job in the White House and has an issue with President Trump, which is why he's doing it. So also, but let's talk about the process is thus. If the House impeaches President Trump, it goes to the Senate, and they will not even get 50 votes in the Senate. Which is
one of the reasons why Pelosi doesn't believe in doing it. But it's not just George Conway that's taking this position.
The optics of doing this would be catastrophic to Democrats in 2020.
That may well be why Democrats don't do it, but that doesn't get you away from the fact that senior Republicans are lining up saying what Donald Trump did.
Which senior Republicans?
Well, let's look at Mitt Romney. I am sickened at the extent, and Mitt Romney, remember him?
He's not a senior Republican.
He's not a senior Republican.
Absolutely not. He and Trump had a battle royale 3 years ago.
And a former presidential candidate who was considered for the
Mitt
Secretary
Romney's
of State
now
position.
A senior Republican. He's a 100-day senator.
This is not.
100-day senator.
Regardless of how Eric would like to put this across, this is not a simple Democrat-Republican
Simon, be fair about this. Hold on. He was a governor many, many years ago. He failed running for president twice, and he's been a senator for 100 days.
I don't want to discuss,
that's not a senior Republican.
Eric, I don't want to discuss the merits of every single Republican, but let me go to Peter Kuznick. Peter, as Martin Redish pointed out a moment ago, this is not the first time impeachment has been talked about. Bill Clinton was impeached. Andrew Johnson was impeached. Richard Nixon came very close to being impeached. In your view, is it valid this time?
I think it's valid. It might not be the smartest strategy, but when we look at the Clinton example, Clinton's approval ratings were quite high when he got impeached. And then it backfired on the Republicans. We can't assume based on that this is going to backfire on the Democrats. I think there are a lot of grounds for impeaching Donald Trump. This might be the least significant of all the grounds for impeaching Donald Trump. Yeah. At the top of my list, I would put his crimes against the climate, against the planet. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the one that has real significance. But the Democrats, the Democrats have not focused on that. They've been so focused. They've been so focused on this Russia probe that they've lost perspective on what the real issues with Donald Trump are.
Now climate policy is a crime in your world?
Yes.
Maybe your law professor would beg to differ.
Okay. Peter, I just want to get something else clarified. Yeah, you did say that Republicans lost ground after the impeachment of Bill Clinton. Yeah. Why? Why did they lose?
Because they're trying to impeach the president, lying about, I don't know what we can say on the air here about a blowjob, is really was considered to be trivial by the American public. Clinton was guilty. He lied. He apologized, and it was a waste of time. And it distracted the country from things that we needed to be doing. I think this has also distracted the country from things that we need to be doing. Right. And in that sense, it's been, in some ways, a waste of time and a waste of money. And we need to be focusing elsewhere. And the Democrats have fallen into the trap. The Democrats have wasted 2 years where they should be putting forth a strong alternative program, and they haven't done so. And what they've done is really worsening America's relations with Russia at a time when we need to be working together on a lot of things.
Okay.
Can I say something
Go
at
ahead,
some
Martin.
point?
Yeah.
It was indicated that there was no collusion found. That's simply wrong. Collusion, first of all, is not a crime. Right. There is no legal concept. But in the parlance of our normal language, there was enormous collusion. There were numerous interactions between members of the Trump campaign
with the president,
and officials of Russia.
With the president, not with various players in Trump world, so to speak, during the campaign. There was no collusion with the president in Russians, period. Nowhere in that document.
Inquiry. The inquiry was whether there was collusion between the Trump campaign.
No, it wasn't. That's not right.
Sorry,
that's not right. The special investigator was put on the case to find collusion by Donald Trump with the Russians. Candidate Trump with the Russians.
True. I suggest you go back and look what the mandate was.
Okay.
It was the Trump campaign
right.
as well.
And the people who colluded and broke the law are in jail or going to jail.
All right. Martin, I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. We had that report. Mueller finished his job, handed the report to the United States Attorney General, William Barr. He initially released a 4-page summary claiming no collusion and saying that there were no actions that he saw that could justify a charge of obstruction. Barr also said, and this is important, he said the president was simply defending himself. Now, there was an interview, you did an interview in your college newspaper, the Daily Northwestern, and you said that if a student of yours used that argument, you would flunk that student. Explain that.
Absolutely. Yes, and first of all, Barr knows better. He's a good lawyer. But what he was saying was a complete non sequitur. The law requires the showing of a corrupt intent. That means a conscious intent to disrupt an ongoing investigation or judicial proceeding. What Barr was saying, his motive was legitimate. His motive for interfering with the different investigations was worthy. That's irrelevant. Motive has no legal consequence.
I'll get you now.
But is it not important that for 2 years, the Democrats and the left were saying, Robert Mueller was a wonderful investigator. He was the top of the top. He was doing everything right. He was going to get to the bottom of it. He presents his report, and there's no collusion and no evidence of obstruction of justice that rises to the level of going after the president. Now, what do you think about Robert Mueller now, sir?
Robert Mueller, the same thing I've always thought of Robert Mueller. I have enormous respect for Robert Mueller, but you're ignoring one important point. The Justice Department won't let Mueller indict the president.
Not indict.
So you get no points.
They didn't. He actually said nothing rose to the level of corruption.
That is simply a misstatement. That is a misstatement of what he said. What he said is, we will not exonerate the president on the basis of obstruction. If we had concluded that there was no obstruction, we would have said so.
Right there. In this country, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're innocent until proven guilty. They didn't have enough to prove Donald Trump guilty on any charges.
That's not
so
right.
They didn't go. They didn't continue. Well, then why didn't they?
Why didn't they? Because Mueller said, if you had read the report, you would have seen that Mueller said because he was incapable of indicting the president, he thought it unfair to accuse the president, but he suggested that Congress look into this matter using its constitutionally authorized power because there was very significant evidence of obstruction of justice with corrupt intent.
Simon, I'm going to look at another reason that Bernie Sanders in this instance is talking about not to impeach the president. He said, if we do impeach the president right now, all this time from now until the election, the oxygen will be sucked out of everything else. And there are major issues that need to be talked about, things like immigration, healthcare, criminal justice reform, education, housing, etc.
Absolutely.
He's got a point there.
And he has got a point there, and I think that's where I would slightly disagree with Peter. I don't think the Democrats have fallen into a trap here. Unusually for the Democrats, I mean, if you go back to 12 months ago, we all assumed that if the Democrats won control of the House of Representatives, as they did in last November's midterm elections, they would be moving to impeach the president 5 times before breakfast every day. They have not done that. That is highly unusual. And one of the reasons they haven't done it is because they saw in last November's midterm election that specifically on the issue of health care, they felt they made significant inroads. And Bernie Sanders himself and many of the other Democratic candidates out there are saying, let's not get caught in the mire of all of this. The White House has had a month now to condition, to manage the way in which the news has been presented to the public about what was in or what was not in the Mueller report. Is it really worth hammering away at that, or should they have the courage of their convictions and try to win on the issues? It's a big debate for them.
All right, Simon, they may not impeach, but the House of Representatives is still continuing with an investigation. I mean, wouldn't it have the same effect?
They will carry on digging. Nancy Pelosi is giving them a clean slate to carry on digging. Gerald Nadler, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, has already subpoenaed Don McCahon. He's the White House counsel. He subpoenaed the unredacted version of the Mueller report because remember, no one outside the Department of Justice or perhaps the White House has been allowed to see that. So they can continue digging and attempting to make the case, that doesn't mean they have to do that at the expense of dealing with issues.
This is a gift to the Trump re-election 2020 campaign. I sat down with President Trump a couple of days ago, talked to him specifically about this. If the Democrats continue to investigate at the House level, investigate everyone surrounding Trump, you know what they're not doing? They're not talking about the issues. And this is the trap they fell into for the last 2 years. They hate Trump so much, they're just trying to hit Trump with something instead of issues. You know what Bernie Sanders came out? You know what Bernie Sanders came out with his first big policy mistake on Monday? That he wants to allow convicted felons, rapists, murderers, and kidnappers to vote from prison. If this is all they got, they better stick to investigations.
You know, Eric, they may not have talked about the issues, but one moment, Martin, I'll get to you in a moment.
Okay.
They didn't talk about the issues, but they did win in the midterms, didn't they?
Well, Trump wasn't running in the midterms. Oh. You can't beat Trump.
It was a referendum.
How was it a referendum?
Trump accepted the midterms were a referendum on his presidency. He himself described them in those terms.
Trump is running 2020.
Okay.
You watch what happens. Look, listen, if the whole, you have the 20-something Democrats right now scrambling for a platform, and the whole platform was, we're going to impeach Trump, and now they don't have that anymore. They're all trying to find their feet.
That was not their platform.
All right, Martin, I will get to you in a moment, but Peter, I want to ask you this. If Congress, this is looking at another point of view, is if Congress does nothing, does it set a bad precedent? Is it going to give this president and future presidents more power?
It sets a terrible precedent. If you look at this report, what it shows is a White House that is so corrupt, that is up to its eyeballs in corruption, that Trump is probably the most corrupt person, that is your friend, probably the most corrupt person to occupy the office. So I think the Democrats need to investigate, but I agree with Eric that it's a stupid strategy to put all their eggs in that basket. I mean, we look at what's going on in the world now, the important issues, and they far transcend what's going on with this investigation. And the trap, I agree somewhat with Simon, that it's not just the Democrats who have made that mistake, it's the media. You turn the media, you turn on any major network in the United States, and all they talk about is this investigation, 24 hours a day. And the Democrats fell into that trap. So it's not that the Democrats have ignored the policy issues, but the media is obsessed with that. And you turn it on. You turn on CNN, and you got 4 talking heads up there, all saying that Russian meddling in the election was an act of war. You know, there's no context. Nobody says, well, the United States meddles in everybody's elections, and Russia meddles in lots of elections.
Or that Russia has been meddling in our elections for the better part of 80 years.
And there's a reason why Russia does that, and we need to understand why Putin is motivated to do what he does. And when Trump says something correct, like saying we need to improve relations with Russia, we need to be friends with Russia, that's much better than being enemies, especially in a world where U.S. and Russia have 93% of the world's nuclear weapons. We should be supporting him on those things.
Even on this issue, Republicans are divided. Former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh, right-wing conservative radio host, who tweeted this week, Donald Trump has never, ever gotten angry at Russia for interfering with our election. He gets angry all the time at the Americans who investigated the interference, but he's never, ever gotten angry at the Russians. Pretty telling, huh? That's from another one you're going to write
a backbencher B-teamer who was in and out of Congress.
Eric, I have to go to Martin.
You just can't call these people top-notch, top-shelf Republicans. It's not fair.
Thanks. Martin, go ahead. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Well, I'd like to follow up on that point. What's lost in all this is the careful documentation in the Mueller report that Russia consciously attacked us, and the president has done absolutely nothing to defend our constitutional system. It was documented in that report, chapter and verse, and the president applauds himself without even giving a thought to how we can defend our nation against a frontal attack to our entire democratic process.
Which has been going on for decades, my friend. It's been going on forever. It will continue to go on. Would it not be better? Would it not be better? That's not talking points. Would it be better not? Would it not be better? And I agree with Peter that we should be friendly with Russia. Probably the most dangerous country to us, maybe besides Iran. We should be friendly with Russia, not at a constant, not develop another Cold War. They've done it before. They'll do it again.
Peter, would you agree that nothing's been done against Russia? Because if you look at what the president has done, he's supplied arms to the rebels in Ukraine. He has encouraged the Europeans not to buy gas from Russia. He's imposed sanctions on Russians.
More than that, he says he wants to take the U.S. out of the INF Treaty. He's threatened to not renew the New START Treaty when that comes to an end in 2021. What that means is we're going back to a 1980s-style nuclear arms race when we had 70,000 nuclear weapons, 1.5 million Hiroshima bombs. That's the danger. I mean, those are the things that I think, I don't know if we can say they're impeachable, but those are the things that Democrats should be focusing on. Do you hear any of the Democrats talking about these issues?
Yeah.
Almost not at all.
But Peter, high crimes and misdemeanors, that's the bar that's set for impeachment.
Yes.
Why is a policy, why does that bring us to a level or exceeds a level of high crime and or misdemeanor?
Well, the question is, does undermining the national security of the United States.
In what way? In what way? By choosing to pull us out of free trade agreements and things like NATO, where we're spending 80% of NATO budget comes from the United States.
I agree with you. I'm very critical of NATO and U.S. involvement in NATO, and I'm very critical of NATO expansion. 13 countries now, right to Russia's doorstep. If you think that what Russia did to us is something that we're so outraged about, how would you feel if you were Russia and NATO had expanded right to your doorstep?
Right. Simon, one final point. There is another investigation going on. William Barr has talked about this. The Inspector General of the Department of Justice is looking at how this special counsel was initially set up. What was the motivation for that?
Well, this is the argument that Donald Trump has advanced, that the other side had it in for him, and that, in fact, the investigation should never have focused on his campaign, but on the dirty dealings that he insists Hillary Clinton and her ilk were up to during the presidential election of 2016. There are those voices, most of them within the the White House support structure, that say William Barr is doing exactly the right thing. There are others out there that say he can dig away and he won't find anything, and that this is a highly politicized decision to launch that investigation. Bear in mind, though, there are scores of other investigations underway into President Trump, his campaign, his inauguration and his administration, and many of those, particularly the one that's underway in the Southern District of New York, may yet pose substantial problems for him.
Okay, Martin, I just want to get you on a point that we were talking about a moment ago, and that is the bar at which a president could be impeached. High crimes and misdemeanors. Is there a definition of that?
Not really. As Gerald Ford once said when he was in the House of Representatives, high crimes and misdemeanors are anything the House wants them to be. But to the extent we try to put some sort of standard, violation of the president's constitutional obligations under Article 2 of the Constitution would probably fit. The president's commission of crimes, perhaps violation of the emoluments clause, which this president is clearly engaged in.
Doesn't apply to the president or the vice president, as you well know, Mr. Constitutional Scholar.
The emoluments clause does apply to the president of the United States.
It absolutely does not.
All right.
I'll bet you dinner on that, my friend.
Okay, on that difference, we're going to have to end the show. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching.